Hello and welcome, fellow motorsports fans. It's been a brilliant week of racing, and as always, I'm here to tell you all about it. This episode will focus on all things sports car, so let's get started with the big one, the Macau GT Cup. And honestly, it warmed my heart. It was the perfect final race for Mercedes from Marciello. You could imagine he was dominant all weekend long, put it on pole, led every single lap, both in the quali race and the actual race. It was truly fantastic to see, and just really a deserved finish to this particular chapter of his career, and we're all really looking forward to whatever is next for him. BMW hypercar apparently, but yeah. Mercedes looked like the car to beat all weekend long, to be fair. Maro Engel was sitting in P2 throughout all of the quali race and a lot of the GP until a mechanical failure caused him to retire the car on a safety car restart during the GP because I believe he was stuck in second gear, if I remember correctly. So that was very unfortunate, otherwise it would have been a very clear Mercedes 1-2. Similar for Denny Yankadella, he was actually also in contention to get P3, but then it didn't quite happen. He got shuffled down during the quali race and clawed his way back up over the course of the GP to finish in P5. The other interesting bit I want to say is the effort Porsche put into this event did not pay off at all. Porsche went with 7 cars and like 6 of their absolute best factory GT drivers: Kevin Estre, Thomas Preining, Lawrence Vantor, Matteo Caroli, you name him, like all of them were there. Picariello, and I'm forgetting the 6th one, Earl Bamber, obviously, there we go. And it just didn't pay off. Obviously, BUP is always a big factor during these, or maybe the teams just could not figure out how to set up the car, but it was quite disastrous to watch, really. Like, Picariello and Earl Bamber were sort of the only ones even remotely competitive. No, that's not actually true. There was Lawrence Vantor was the only one like remotely competitive, and even then he was not threatening a podium, let's put it that way. Then on top of all of it, we had Thomas Preining and Matteo Caroli colliding during the qualifying race. So really just a bit of a mess for Porsche all around, and a bit of a disappointing event. On the other hand, Audi, I think, can be pretty happy considering they only went with 2 cars, and Mortara did get to prove his class on this particular racetrack by getting P3. Yes, he couldn't quite deal with the Mercedes, but still, I feel like a very good result and a deserved podium finish. Alright, that was sort of all the talking points from Macau, really, except for one. Almost forgot. Jules Gounon got done really dirty. They had some sort of issue with the car apparently that they just couldn't figure out over the weekend. He was among the last positions, proper backmarker pace, multiple seconds off the pace, and a very disappointing weekend all around to watch for him. Otherwise, I'm sure he would have been up there with the other 3 Mercedes factory aces. Okay. Now we can move on to the other big Macau race, which was the doubleheader, the conclusion of the TCR World Tour. And it was a pretty tight 3-way coming into the event with Mikulic, Huff and Elache all very close. Elache trailing a little bit behind, if I remember correctly, but all 3 had a really good shot at the title. The first race saw Mikulic more or less in full control, and that was sort of the key race for him to actually secure the championship. Led more or less every lap, if I remember correctly, and just did what he needed to do. Elache got done a bit dirty. He started, I want to say, in P2. Yes, he started in P2, but got dropped all the way to P10 on the opening lap. That was sort of the neck breaker for him. He did work his way back up to P6, although most of that passed his teammates, so let's just say he didn't really have to fight too hard to get there. Still sort of the biggest mover over the course of the race. Macau obviously very, very tricky to overtake in these sorts of cars. And then Rob Huff got a podium, but obviously it wasn't quite enough to actually keep a lead or a big lead going into the final race. And then during the final race, it looked to be, first of all, it was a cool battle because we had all the Audis going up against all the Signlink Sign Racing, Lincoln Coast, there we go. My brain is all confused as always. It was sort of a cool like top 7 battle for the title, really, with Urrutia leading a lot of the race. If I remember, yeah, he did he win the race? No, he did lose out to Vavish at the end. He lapped most of the race though, so that was a good thing. And it looked to be, we looked to have more or less just needed to hold station really. Elaché was too far back to impact the title. Obviously he didn't score enough in race 1, and then Mikulic was running around in, I believe it was like P8, P9, like behind, yeah, I think P8, behind the two battling teams. Yeah, exactly, because yeah, the success ballast and all that sort of stuff. So it looked to be halves to lose, and then a thing happened, which I think is, I'm better off showing you than talking about it. So essentially we are driving around the streets of Macau here, and then his bonnet just pops open like this. And obviously, as you can see from his gestures, yeah, there is the train, and now he's gonna have to let the train go, because he can't see anymore. That was the end of the race for him. He had to retire the car for very, very obvious reasons. And therefore the title went to Mikulic, and Elaché also stole P2 more or less. Slightly underwhelming finish for Huff and the Come To You Audi squad. They played really well all year long. Him and Vervish were a fantastic duo. But at the end of the day, it is racing. Sometimes it happens. He did bump into the guy ahead, in case it wasn't clear on the video. Like he did brake the car himself, although we can obviously have a little discussion about, was there any brake checking, was there anything going on. It's touring car racing, things happen, is how I'm gonna call it. So yeah, an interesting end to a very, very intense season. And yeah, I think we can all look forward to the, I was about to say to next year, but no, there's obviously going to be the World Finals as well. I think early next year, if I remember correctly. Anyway, smooth transition, because talking about World Finals, there was also the Lamborghini Super Trofeo World Finals, and before the World Finals we had the last round for every single regional series, also at Vallelunga. So in case you're not aware, there's a European, a North American and an Asian Super Trofeo series, and they all had their 6th round of the year to conclude the season at the same track in preparation for the World Final, to sort of make it fair for all the different teams. Now, just for context, I'm watching the entire European season. That one is a really good one. I have sort of tried to keep up with the American one, but it's not high up my priority list by any stretch. And I've not watched the Asian series at all. So just to give this for context, now this is purely due to strength as well. It was sort of expected. Obviously, the Europeans are by far the strongest entries across the board, and then the Americans have a couple of competent cars, and among the Asian entries, they weren't gonna put up a fight, and this sort of stayed true over the course of the weekend. This out of the way, the European title battle was a really close one. I cannot show you the standings because Lamborghini does not publish them, so you'll have to take my word for it, and I'll have to take the commentator's word for it. But essentially, we had a title fight between number 86 of Brendan Leach and the number 6 of Mattia Michelotto and Gilles Stadsbader, which is sort of a, let's just say, a light version of the dynamic of Marciello and Boguslavski that we've had in the GT World Challenge Europe for the last couple of years. Because Michelotto is a fantastic driver and probably the fastest on this grid here, or at the very, like, weekend to weekend obviously, but he's in contention for that particular title. And Stadsbader is decent, but it stops there really. He's not impressing by himself at all, really. He's just an alright top 10, 15 kind of driver in the series. So, that out of the way, it's usually the races where Michelotto starts the car, the number 6 has a good chance in, and it was the case here in race number 1, where again Michelotto out front, gapping away, running away, handing the car over to Stadsbader, and then he had to defend and hold off Brandon Leach until the finish. Usually this doesn't work, or it often doesn't work. It's a car that struggles to actually secure wins from my memory, but this time it did work, and we have to say Leach also was uncharacteristically impatient and maybe a little bit nervous, or worried he needs to take the win now. It's a bit of a mistake here, and I think we're better off showing you. And maybe I did have to record this already, so maybe we have to try again here. Okay, so we have the yellow car here. The yellow car is Brandon Leach, and then the white car he's chasing is Spada. I think I might have gone a couple seconds too far back, but anyway, we'll get through it for a moment. You can see he is all over him. That's sort of what you would expect. As I said, Leach is definitely the quicker driver usually. On average, there's no doubt. But yeah, you still got to get past, right? We all know catching's one thing, yada yada yada, the old saying. And he does get a little impatient right about any moment now. Come on, don't leave me hanging. Yeah, here it is. There comes the dive, and contact is made, and both cars are damaged from here on out. Fortunately, neither car gets severe damage, so both can carry on just fine. Leach obviously gets a penalty for it. He still even hangs on to P2, so it just didn't really affect the race at all, but just showed like the state of mind that Leach was in, and like how it was all heating up to be a really important final race of the season. Just quickly, there's also the Pro-Am field, the full M's and club drivers, they got separated into their own race, which I did not watch, because I just don't care. The Pro-Am field is interesting enough, though, and featured a title battle between the number 16 of Spinelli and Lewandowski, and also the number, is it 81, I think, 81 or 86. Why is my brain like this? We have to check here. It's the 89. Okay. Either way, yeah, no, it's not the 89. Where are they? There they are. Yeah, 81. Okay, I was correct. Yeah, of Shandov and Alex Au. And, I mean, to be fair, Spinelli, he is also one of those drivers in contention for fastest in the series. The 16 was a fair bit ahead, so it wasn't really a super close title fight, but it still got cut a bit short because Au did suffer from a puncture and it ended the race, and so it handed over the title. Okay, just wanted to throw this in there, so that's why we don't talk about during race number 2. Now, race number 2 was a bit of an interesting one. As always, Spada did the quali, so he started quite a bit down the pack. He did actually work his way up the field more than he normally does. He did reasonably well. The only problem is he also got a penalty, a 5-second penalty for, I don't remember who he hit. Did I write it down here? No, I did not. He hit someone. But yeah, so he got a penalty. Michelotto did a really good drive, as always, after a late race safety car. Charged his way all the way to P3, like he just always delivers in these sort of situations. But first of all, P3 was still behind Leach, who was P2 on track at that point. And then, well, they had the penalty looming over them. So the penalty essentially decided the title in Brandon Leach's favour. While at the other end, we did get a win for Ali and Söderström, which they've been a sort of a cool, consistent, but not really race-winning pairing over the years, so that was a nice little side storyline among the title battle chaos. Okay, the NA races, I am going to be honest, I don't care too much about, as I said, because as you can see, there's only 5 pros. There's a deep Pro-Am field, which is good enough, but I don't know, it's just a bit weird having sort of this nonsensical 5-car battle at the front of a race. And more or less it's the 101 of Carl Marciello and Danny Formal dominating every single race. Now, those guys are a pairing to keep an eye on. In case you haven't seen this already, they are going to be driving in IMSA next year in GTD for Wayne Taylor Racing. So, obviously they are quality drivers. The rest of the field, not really putting up that much of a fight. Ryan Norman did in one of the races. He put up a bit of a fight in race 2, I believe. And then Nicolas Jamin was like all right in some of them, and that was about it. These guys are just not really super impressive, at least in contrast to the 101 crew. And as we'll see in a moment, they weren't super impressive in contrast to the Europeans. At least on European home soil, they couldn't really do much. So the 101 did pick up both wins in pretty controlled fashion. In particular, the first one, they absolutely dominated. The second one, they worked their way up to the lead and then ran away with it as well. So yeah, there is that. Okay, now World Final time, and the World Final was a messy one. Now, obviously, it's sort of expected to be between like maybe the number 6 of Michelotto and Brendan Leach or whatever, and maybe the 101 can give it a go. And then it turned out the first race was Amaury Bonjour in full control. Now, he is a very good driver. He is a front runner usually in the European Series, but he's not one to dominate races normally. He's more like a top 3 to top 5 kind of like a podium contender, I'd call him, right? Like he's up there. He's going to be fighting at the sharp end, but you wouldn't bet on him to pick up the wins necessarily, especially after seeing him in the first couple of races. It definitely looked like Leach versus Michelotto again, but no. So yeah, Bonjour absolutely dominated the field in race number 1. Now I have to get my memory correct because I messed this up earlier and I'm already re-recording. Exactly, this was a very, very confusing race with a super long safety car. So Michelotto started pretty low down anyway, which is unusual. I think he started as low as like P12. Had a good opening lap, but then got tagged by Jamin, we just talked about earlier in the 130. So got tagged and spun, dropped way down the pack, and all hope was lost, more or less, for the number 6. Until a very long mid-race safety car, which spanned across the entire pit stop window, sort of brought them back in contention. All of a sudden, they came out among the front runners after this pit stop. Very weird. I don't fully understand what happened. Either way, they did get a drive-through for it. So whichever method they used to shuffle to the front of the grid was apparently illegal. I would really like to know what exactly happened, but either way, we can just take that. Yeah, they did come out on among the front runners, but yeah, they were not allowed to stay there. I don't even know where they finished, but at this point, they were fully out of contention. Yeah, it looks like they actually finished P12 as well. There we go then. So yeah, that was that story. Dominant performance from Brendan Leach. And then do we have to see... I don't even remember who won the Pro-Am. It was noteworthy, I'll have to say that. Yeah, okay, in this race, the 101 did reasonably well. The Asian teams were nowhere, and we will also see that, like, in general, the American teams also... They were never in contention for podiums or any really good spots in either of the races. I just want to point this out. Okay. And then second up, we have a very, I want to say, an interesting race, interesting turn of events. So, first of all, Bonjour secures the world title by finishing P3. He just drove a very controlled race. We knew he didn't have to do much. He didn't do much. He sort of sat where he was and... just brought home a happy car in one piece to take the title. Now, more unusual is this combination of Scionti and Segu. I hope that's how I pronounce it. I don't know what to do with the U with the little thingy on top. They are definitely not a race-winning combination. In all honesty, I don't even remember them at all being part of the season. I'm not entirely sure if they were a one-off entry for the last round. Could be. But yeah, that one definitely came out of nowhere. Glad to see Ali and Söderström doing well once again. But yeah, really the title, I feel like we got robbed off with the number 6 out early. And what even... Okay, excuse my confusion. My confusion came from the fact that I did remember, and I also noted down, Michelotto with one of his classic epic charges in the second stint of the race, coming from P20 all the way to P6, which is like a classic Michelotto drive, but apparently he did get a post-race penalty somewhere and dropped down to immediately at P15. So something happened there. Again, I just want to point out, fantastic drive by Michelotto once again. Don't know what they get the penalty for, but yeah, it's a thing. The front of the race was a bit of a curious experience this time around because it was 2 Pro-Am entries, scrapping it for P1 for a very long time with both Spinelli and Schandorf, the 2 protagonists you'd normally expect going for it. They did get caught late in the race. Well, once the ELMS took over the eyes, Alex Au and Lewandowski did get caught near the end of the race. And, you know, it should have been a close fight between the pair, but unfortunately Lewandowski did got spun, so that sort of ended this particular title battle, handed the world title over to the 81 in favour of the number 16. Sort of a balance really to the European title, and seems fair to me. Okay. That was a slightly confusing segment because I did confuse myself because I missed a penalty. It's life, it sometimes happens. Okay, now on to the news segment, and this one is going to be a little bit spicy. First of all, we have the Toyota driver announcements, which we are going to double up here. There's essentially 2 driver news, or even we could call it 3 driver news, because first of all, there is Lopez leaving the Toyota Hypercar squad. He is going to take over one of the pro driver seats at the Lexus Acadus ASP WEC entries. That is a bit of a handful to say. So he's going to, I guess we can say, step down to GT3 for next WEC season. His position will be taken by Nick de Vries, which that rumor has been around for a while. I believe it's been around since last year, so not a huge surprise. I'm glad to see de Vries back in a championship winning car, just to have a personal little redemption arc after his horrible F1 stint. We all know he might not be the best driver in the world, but he's certainly better than what he showed in his AlphaTauri stint. The other very interesting bit of Toyota roster news is Ritomo Miyata. Now, I've talked about him joining Formula 2 over in the single-seater episode. You can watch that one if you want to hear me talk about it. But it is also announced that he is going to be doing ELMS next year. It's a full season entry. He's going to be driving for Cool Racing, and he'll be alongside Lucas Flucher. So, yeah, 2 cool drivers paired up together. I'm looking forward to that. It's no massive surprise, I suppose. I was more predicting him to do WEC in GT3, to have that as sort of a ladder, but I guess it makes more sense for him to actually get prototype experience instead, for Toyota to send him to a prototype series. He's going to be a super busy man next year, but if you've seen him in Super Formula, you know that this guy is fantastic, so very much look out for him, no matter if you're watching Formula 2 or ELMS. Okay, next up then, this is just a very little piece of news that sort of makes me happy, which is Richard Westbrook leaving Chip Ganassi. So he was obviously driving for the number, it's a 2, right? Yeah, it's a 2 in WEC, the Chip Ganassi caddy over in Europe. And I feel like he's been a bit of a weak point for the lineup. It's like Alex Lynn is a fantastic driver. Obama obviously had the odd mistake here or there, but he's also a fantastic racing driver. And then there's just Westbrook in there as well, who's sort of, maybe past his prime a little bit. Let's just put it that way. So it's going to be really good for the caddy operation to have another driver over in there. We don't know who it's going to be at the moment. But since they're only really pushing with 1 car in Europe as well, I feel like they have to make sure they put the 3 absolute best racing drivers they can get in there. And I feel like Westbrook wasn't going to be a part of that anymore. On the other hand, I'm happy that he's going to still be around in the hypercars, and he's going to be in a project I feel like much more suitable to his current level, which is he's going to be in the JDC Miller Customer Porsche. So yeah, I feel like that's just a good sort of new chapter for both sides of this particular story. Okay, and now, last but not least, we had the Porsche Junior Shootout, which unfortunately, obviously, that's not the kind of thing that you'd see broadcast, and no, it's even difficult to figure out a full list, even though they can be found, but Porsche themselves don't really do a good job of promoting it. I just want to point out a few key people taking part at the shootout, which is Callum Hedge, the Formula Regional Americas winner, and in contention for the Australia Carrera Cup, I believe. I don't know if he's still technically in title contention because he had to miss a vital round, but he is certainly one of the fastest guys over there as well, so a really promising young guy. Then we have my personal favorite young Porsche driver, Robert Haan, who we're going to talk about more in a second, and a few others like, what's his name? I forgot his first name. Dickerson, the guy who stomped the North American Carrera Cup, whatever his first name may be. So a lot of interesting faces here. Obviously, we don't really know who did well and who didn't, or who's going to be the next Porsche Junior, but now you know that happened and you can wait with me. Okay, and last but not least, the announcement that Robert Haan is going to be joining Lechner Racing for a campaign in Porsche Super Cup next year, and this makes me really excited because I thought, oh yeah, okay, hopefully he's going to be in the Germany Cup. I did not expect him to jump to the Super Cup straight away, and I'm really happy for him. The Lechner Racing outfit is obviously a race-winning and championship-winning team, so he's got all the tools at his hand to impress people, to hopefully further his career. So yeah, just really exciting times all around. If you want to watch Robert de Haan before the Super Cup next year, make sure to just tune into the next round of the Middle East Carrera Cup. Alright, that's it from me for today. If you don't want to miss me talking about next week's series and racing action, which for example includes the conclusion of the Aussie Supercar season, then make sure to subscribe so you won't miss it. And in any case, thanks for watching, stay healthy, and I'll see you next week.